November 18th meeting to order. Set up the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Push it. Okay, first order of business, the approval of minutes. I reviewed them and they're fine. Correct.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. First one's a small project. Is that a go?
No, we didn't get a delineation. So
Okay.
I suggest we withdraw it until, and have them not continue it, just withdraw it. And, I mean, it's not a public meeting, so it's
Okay.
it's an administrative decision, so I think we can just,
You're referring to number 164?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does it require a motion to withdraw?
That's okay.
I would, and then they can, we'll let them refile whenever they have the delineation. but
No
they'll
harm
just-
on a refile?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll move that we withdraw it and refile at a later date.
Second for discussion, just, I know this property, I used to live right up the street from it, and that wetland line is like as well-defined as it could be. It's a little brook and it's just a steep drop. Does he
He just didn't get back to Heidi for.
He just never got back,
So,
okay, so he's gonna,
Yeah,
that's
so
fine.
we're, you know,
I
we
just
can't
didn't-
make them do their plan, but.
Right, okay. No more discussion.
Okay, so Al made a motion to withdraw.
Yeah, I guess.
And I seconded.
Okay.
Second if I can act.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public meeting, 242, no number, and request to continue to December 2nd.
We actually have to open, I mean,
Oh, I'm
consider
sorry,
it
you just told
open.
me that.
We can do it next, because there's, I don't think now there's anyone here for Zero Brentwood. Anyone? No? Okay.
All right, so we'll go to High Street then. 242, 16620 High Street.
So they did revise the plan to put the swale on there, and it's referred to as it's referred to in your different iterations of the language to describe it as the, let me enlarge to it, existing drainage swale.
This is what they wrote, this is what you wrote.
So the top two, the middle one is the version that you and I spoke about today, but I revised that some to make a hybrid of what Kurt had sent me, and after speaking to Eric, my boss, we kind of talked it through. I was a little conflicted about what some of it would mean in all the references to the different sections. So I deleted some of that and added some clarifying language about it being, its function being as a stormwater swale, which was the part Kurt had put in his. So the top one is now kind of the hybrid. The bottom one is Kurt's. The middle one is the one we discussed.
Okay.
And I did share the hybrid language with
Just give me
Kurt
a second
earlier
to read
today.
this, okay? You didn't get to run this by Joe, did you?
I did resend it to him, but he didn't respond.
Okay.
I think the only thing that it changes is in the second sentence, it adds, the NACC acknowledges the existing swale is part of a stormwater conveyance system which discharges to a resource area, and then the rest is the same.
Okay.
Just to kind of clarify that the commission, in not granting it the exemption, didn't mean that it was necessarily a jurisdictional resource area. They still acknowledged that its function was as a stormwater conveyance.
Okay. Are you comfortable with that?
I'd like to see, do you have a copy of that?
Yes, Jen, I could steal from you.
So the top is the hybrid, the middle is what I originally sent you, and the bottom is yours.
Sure. If I might, Kurt Young from Wetlands Preservation Incorporated. Jennifer and I have gone back and forth several times today with regard to wording, and we've been, I guess from the read that I had of the Conservation Commission at the last meeting was that there was not a real interest on the part of the commission in calling this a wetland resource area. However, there was a great effort or great interest in assuring that there would be the ability to review anything that took place that would modify it so that stormwater was effectively controlled and managed on the site. And we have no problem with that concept, and that's the wording that I put together, was to indicate that it had stormwater function and would be reviewable by the commission under paragraph 4 of the new regulations that have been issued to deal with stormwater conveyances and structures. I think Jennifer's wording, the problem I have with Jennifer's wording is it tends to say that the stormwater system isn't exempted, and as a result, any wet areas within that detention pond, swale, whatever, would be considered non-exempt and would be resource areas. And that would bind you guys, and it would bind we guys, to dealing with it as resource areas in the future. The flexibility provided in the second paragraph, or second sentence of Jennifer's hybrid, as we would refer to it, helps resolve that, but it doesn't necessarily provide the clarity that we need with regard to whether it's a resource area or not. And I think if the commission wants to make it a resource area, then we need to try to think a little bit about how we proceed, because we may not want a decision on that under an ANRAD, because it's a very binding obligation for 3 years that really can't be changed. So we think the commission's interest, our interpretation of the commission's interest, was that it was very concerned about being assured they'd be able to review it in the future. And we have absolutely no problem with that for 2 reasons. One is it's required by the regulations, and number 2, most of that area of the site at some point is within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, so any modification is going to come before you in either case. So I feel comfortable in assuring the commission that from a regulatory perspective and from a practical perspective, this has to come back to you anyways for review if any modification is made to it. We have recently enacted this new set of regulations that we're tussling with here, trying to interpret for the first time perhaps, because we have, as a state, Commonwealth, decided that we needed to try to deal with stormwater more effectively and efficiently, and deal with land use planning more effectively and efficiently. We need to be able to modify these areas. We need to be able to add forebays to them. We need to be able to expand them when projects expand. We want to be able to get in there and change the elevation of them. And if they're BVW areas, we can't do it. So the state recognized that we don't allow stormwater management systems to be used for replication areas, okay, and that they have very limited wildlife use, and they have very limited other functional values besides stormwater, which is a very valuable function for the Commonwealth and needs to be maintained, probably the most valuable one. The Rivers Act came out in 1996, and in the same informational session that they had, they issued the stormwater management guideline. Nobody even looked at the guideline, 9 pages. It was on the back of the document. I looked at it, I go, whoa. You get this thick rivers front regulation and 9 pages of, to me, a significant improvement in what we've been doing as a Commonwealth in terms of stormwater management. So I think the commission is protected well in this instance, and we would go for the language that I constructed, which recognizes that it is a stormwater management conveyance and would come back to the commission for review if there's any modification to it. That I think is what we would want to see happen. I think the reference to that particular section of the regulation, I guess I'd rather see it, Jennifer, perhaps refer to paragraph 5, which is the one that says we haven't met the burden of proof for a demonstration of whether it should be exempt or not. And that's a no decision, basically.
Right. My issue with yours is that it gets its sort of regulatory authority from 10.024, which then specifies that it's a stormwater conveyance that was constructed after the 1996 date, which it wasn't. So
it's the modifications that, I think you have the word modified is the key word there, because the DEP recognized that
Then I think
they
then we
had
would-
to accommodate those.
Then I think, again, this would need more tweaking, because it would need to then say, although the system was not constructed after the specified blah, blah, it, has since been modified, but those modifications are supposed to be part of, to meet the stormwater standards, which they also don't. So yours actually seems to lose its sort of regulatory requirement. You could almost argue against this at some point to say we're not
Well,
required.
I mentioned to you earlier to see whether Al was going to be around this evening, because you may be the only member present with the longevity that I have working with the commission. And do you remember when the Sutton Street businesses were all being flooded out as a result of this swale? And Mel Weiner dug a wicked big ditch on his property to divert the water from flowing through the businesses on Sutton Street, so they would be diverted directly to the pond. I think you were on the commission at that point in time.
I was here for that.
Yeah.
I was kind of new.
Yeah, we probably all were. But at that point, we filed a request for determination of applicability, and all of the swales along the railroad track on Mel Weiner's property were deemed non-jurisdictional, and I will say that my strong recollection is the intent was that there's nothing upstream that would be jurisdictional either. And that was, you can't really have an intermittent stream coming down and then disappearing in a situation like that. So I think I don't know
if that's a good example, but I don't know if it's actually totally on point for this one. That was more of...
The issue, I think, is whether, and I think Jennifer has a legitimate point, was the work developed in concert with the stormwater management regulations in the wetlands protection regulations, and I would say it met the stormwater protection regulations because it was a non-jurisdictional area. It wasn't subject to those, and I think that's an important element of the story, that it was not considered a jurisdictional wetland resource area at that point in time, and it was never assumed to be a jurisdictional wetland area. It was modified over time, and it would then meet that criteria in the new regulation. But I admit that it's a questionable area.
If you'll allow me to, let me just ask you one question, and this is a real ground ball for you. How does Jennifer's draft hurt your client?
What hurts? I don't think it's. I don't want to prejudge it whether it hurts or not. It just has the potential, I guess, for that. But the statement that she makes relative to we haven't met the burden of proof. Well, I don't know. It looks like now that I read that, maybe that will work.
It's the same words.
Because you have referenced the point 5, the paragraph 5 in there.
Right. Always have.
Never mind. No, I think that's been our concern, is that we want to get something definitive. The most definitive way would be to say it's not a wetland resource area, it's a component of the stormwater system, and would be reviewed later. And from the standpoint of my applicant, he's interested in trying to get some certainty with regard to that, so he can put a large amount of money into a master plan to improve the property, as well as the stormwater system. So it all sort of goes hand in hand. So what we were looking for was the language I put together. Jennifer's hybrid, I think, is something we can
The top
work
paragraph
with.
now. I'm talking about
Yes,
the top paragraph. I mean, it appears to me, after I've read it several times, that it's almost what you'd call a push. It gives you both what you want.
Yeah.
At least that's the way I read it. I know there are other people here that are going to comment, but I don't know, it doesn't seem like it does harm to either side, which is probably a good place to be.
Yeah.
Jack, you have a question?
I think that does. Working back around the regulations.
He's saying he's going to accept Jennifer's version of the language, which states that NACC acknowledges the existence of the swale as part of the stormwater conveyance system, which I think was consistent with our discussions last time, and I think it eliminates some ambiguity, some potential ambiguity in the future. I thought that was a very constructive statement there, and one that, again, works, to agree with you, Al, works in both of our favors.
Yeah.
So
The best protection from the standpoint of establishing certainty for the applicant would be to have it use my language, which eliminates the uncertainty as to whether it's a resource area or not.
yeah, but I think we don't meet that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
That we discussed that quite a bit with all the dates last time, and
So
That
you're
was
saying go with the second sentence in the preferred paragraph at the top, don't include the first sentence, include the second sentence.
oh no, I wasn't. I was going to suggest to do the whole thing. I think it's all encompassing. It establishes what I thought we concluded last meeting, which was it didn't meet the dates according to Reg 10.2, Section 5, and I think there's no overturning that, but that second sentence, the beginning of that second sentence, clears it up for the purposes of this project. So, I mean, there's no getting around the CMR 10.02, Section 5, but for the purposes of this project, we're treating it as a stormwater conveyance system with, you know, to maintain the important and necessary features that it requires. So I think from a practical standpoint, that is, well, my preference anyway.
The only, like I said, based on the hybrid and your thing, the verbiage is almost exactly the same. The only thing different is that we're not allowing it, and having it that it doesn't have an exemption. That's the only part that I see that's different, and
That's correct, Lou.
and we have to do that because we have other old swales and stuff that we allow people to do things, but they are what they are. And I think in fairness to both parties, I think the preferred is a good part of the middle that at least allows us to say that we're saying that it's not exempt. And then when the time comes, when you do your ANRAD or whatever you want to do to develop the project, we can address it at that point. That's my thing. John?
No questions.
Doug?
No.
Mr. Chairman, I think, I agree with you and Jack. I think the important thing is the sentence number 2, where it says, "We acknowledge the existing swale is part of a stormwater conveyance system which discharges to a resource area, and future alteration of the swale or any component of the stormwater system other than regular maintenance requires the issuance of an order of conditions or a negative determination." It's really,
I think we can live with it, Al. I think that's fine.
I was hoping so, because that really seems like it's,
Yeah.
The other thing is, we're not going to put flag numbers on this and list it as part of the delineation approved by the ORAD. It's just language that's going to be on the plan and potentially in something we include as a draft. Nowhere on there are there going to be, is this going to be listed in the section that says approving resource area? So even at that point, if someone wanted to argue it down the line, it's not listed as a jurisdictional resource area on the ORAD form.
Okay, that's fine.
Will the wording be on the plan?
Yes. And we can use that specific wording in the preferred language. I guess the question, Jennifer, do you have enough information to close the public hearing, or do we provide a site plan first?
We have the plan, and we have the wording. I think you just need to
We'll put it
provide us
together.
with the plan that has the wording, and we can
Okay.
issue. I think he's asking, do you feel you can close with that?
the question is, are you prepared? So are you comfortable with all the information you have?
Yeah, the rest of the delineation we've reviewed and approved. There's no questions about that. It just all came down to how do we define this for,
Motion?
I'll move that we close and issue in 21 days.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And one abstention.
And one abstention.
Thank you.
Will the plan date change, or will you leave the same plan date?
We'll put a new plan date on it of tomorrow.
Okay.
That's why I
And
captured it.
Yeah, I won't issue until I get the new
want it?
plan date.
Okay. I've got one, Al. Glad your memory's as good.
I do better thinking back 30 years than I do 30 minutes.
I understand.
Let's go back to 0 Brentwood to be read.
We're not reading them, but consider it opened, and we need a motion to continue to December 2nd, so the applicant can be here.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Okay, next one is no number 242, 180 Mill Road.
I don't know that, you didn't get a file number, did you? Oh, we didn't see one, so. Here we go. So as I understand the plan and the notice, this is a drainage improvement driveway project with a new walkway and some front stairs, with the rest of the driveway to be, the part not highlighted, to be repaved. I reviewed the wetland line, everything was fine there. Erosion controls are proposed. There's not much room to be stockpiling material in the front of the house, so I didn't know if there's any provision for that or any needed, but.
Plenty of stockpile they need, you could put it behind the driveway, correct? Do I have this type of plan here?
You're right on the back of the package.
Okay.
Just flip it over. Mine is on the back. You must have it buried in there.
Custom glasses.
Do you have your plan receipts?
I do.
Thank you.
Will the retaining wall stay in place?
It will.
Okay, no alterations to that? Okay. Do you have a plan for stockpiling on site as part of the project?
I'm not sure if that's stockpiling.
Are you replacing the driveway?
We are regrading.
So you're gonna, when they tear up the material, you're gonna take it right off site, or are they gonna have to pile stuff somewhere, or
I
bring in
think
new
they're
material?
going to take it right off site. Tom Sawyer and Arco Excavators are planning to do the work.
So anything on the top of the driveway that needs to be removed and discarded, they'll load it into a truck and
That's correct.
haul it off-site? You won't be storing anything?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, usually that's what they do with driveway projects like this, but this is a pretty long driveway.
They're not tearing up the whole thing, though,
Things
They're not.
being torn up.
just the gray part shown on the
Just
plan.
top.
It's gonna be widened also, right?
Oh, just the gray area is under construction? That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. I have no other questions. This looks like
The
a
rest
pretty-
will be repaved, but overcoat, not ground up or anything.
There'll be no grinding? Okay, awesome.
He's outside the 50.
Like I talked to Jen today, we're gonna condition, Jen, that the driveway part, the long stretch, it is gonna be conditioned that it can't be, not milled, removed, it's just strictly resurfaced.
Okay.
Because, so you're not changing the grades anywhere through the long stretch, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's just the top part to eliminate drainage that's currently coming inside the garage.
Based on the size, they can rip it up and gravel it the same day. Okay, Sean?
No questions?
Doug? Motion?
We have to continue because we don't have a
Oh,
DEP
that's right, I
file
remember.
number, but I'll draft it and we'll be able to close an issue at the next meeting. So we'll need to continue to December 2nd.
So move. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that's unanimous.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, next
Jennifer, will
one.
I need to be here for the December?
I don't think so.
Next one is 242, no number, 265 Summer Street.
Let me get the right plan up here.
That would be my guess.
Greg, did you get the number?
No,
Okay.
still not posted. They received everything.
Talking about DEP?
No DEP number for this one either.
Yeah, they're advertising, they're hiring, so they must have a real problem.
Well, I did go out and review the wetland line, and I didn't have any issues with that. This does have a waiver request, but the driveway itself is already in the 25-foot no disturb zone, and I forget, this had a previous filing, correct?
Yeah.
It did, but it also has a certificate of compliance, so
Yes.
everything that's out there is legally there and approved. But there's a lot going on, so I'll let you present, so I don't have to, I get it all.
This is new, so I wasn't sure if we had to,
We don't read anymore.
we don't, okay, good.
We learned, after all these years, from Doug, that we don't have to read them. We've been under the impression for 35 years that it was a requirement.
Learn something every day.
Well, in that case, Greg Hockmuth from Williamson Sparagus, here presenting the Corlises, who are also here tonight, for the NOI filed for 265 Summer Street. A lot of this project is very similar to the one you just heard. They have a driveway that's also pitching into their garage that needs to be regraded, and probably a little bit more than just regraded. It looks like the material that they used beneath the pavement is unsuitable. It's settling. So that was really the main purpose of the project, was to solve that problem, and then at the same time, do a lot of landscaping improvements. 1999 was when the house was built, according to the assessors. So there was an order of conditions issued in the late 90s. A lot of the retaining walls that are in the front yard, the landscaping walls, are failing in need of repair. So the Corliss contracted with a landscape architect, Jennifer Benjamin, who we've been working with, to come up with a design to not only solve the drainage problem with the driveway, but to also fix a lot of the landscaping around the house as well. We filed a waiver request because a portion of the driveway is within the no build as well as the no disturb. And we are proposing a slight expansion on the side of the driveway. We've got a hatch pattern shown here. It's just to make it a little easier to get in and out of the garage and to square off the turnout, so when you back out of the garage, you can pull out of the driveway instead of having to do a three-point turn. As far as increase in impervious surfaces, they're removing a chunk of the existing pavement, and it's a wash. So the added area is the same amount as the area that they're removing. So there's no net increase. But it is a little closer to the resource area. The other waiver request was to construct a stone sitting wall at the end of the driveway that's within the no build zone as well. It's not retaining anything, it's just a decorative feature. The Corlisses have a lot of plantings around their yard, and on top of the wall, they're proposing a stone, I think trellis is really the right word. We called it a pergola on our plan, but it doesn't extend outside the footprint of the sitting wall, and it's just going to be used to hang plants and to set plants on top of. And then there'll be some pea stone behind that in an area that's currently lawn to give them some outside storage. There's some work that's pretty close to the buffer zone out front. There's a proposed stone patio that may change between now and the next hearing. We know we're coming back because we don't have a file number. We may fine-tune some of the project. You had talked about stockpile areas on the previous project. Most of this will be loaded on a truck, but they will need a temporary stockpile area. And really the only area that makes sense is up in the front side yard. And that's the area that was used in the previous filing as well. So we'd have to extend the erosion controls up there. There shouldn't be any need for dewatering out here, I hope. You know, if they have to dig down deeper than anticipated in the driveway area, that could be something that we'd have to consider. So we may go ahead and submit a dewatering detail just so you have it in your file in case we need to do it. I want to point out that the wetlands over here, I did not flag. They're off-site. We used the previous delineation. My line over here was very close to the previous line, so I wouldn't expect anything different over here as well. It's a very large wetland that eventually abuts a stream quite a distance away. But that's the project.
Just a point of procedure, I think it's worth it. I think we'll want you to show the proposed stockpiling location on the plan.
Yep.
For those modifications you referred to, Greg. And I see a note on the plan, it has proposed garden bed removed pavement, about 95 square feet
Yep.
at the curve of the driveway.
Yep.
Okay, so is that all the pavement to be removed?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
And
There's
then-
currently a wall there, a retaining wall, and in front of the wall is the pavement. So that little wedge is the square footage we're talking about.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah, the driveway's gonna, they're just cutting out a section of that driveway.
That's just not going to be repaved, is what you're just explaining to him.
Right, it's gonna be converted to a landscape bed.
Yep. I'm kind of doing the math on the plus minus. Looks like it's 95 square feet, and then that small sliver on the left side of the driveway, the new hatched area,
Yep.
that wraps around, that's identified as approximately 95 square feet as well. So that's the wash you were talking about.
That's right.
Just want to be clear on that.
Yep.
I guess, no, I don't have any more comments. Those two things are really all I had.
No questions?
I have just a couple. The grades, you're removing the driveway to pitch the water away from the house. I'm looking at, is it 8478 is the ground floor, and the bottom corner is 84.2, so you're only it's not even a, what is it, 6 inches?
That's right.
Only use a 6-inch pitch?
Yeah, I mean,
That's pretty flat.
what would you recommend?
For what?
No kidding. Okay.
Well, somewhere more than 6 inches, but that's your call. So the wall on the back is not going to be that high, right?
No, it's just, we're calling it a sitting wall. It's not going to be any higher than that.
Okay.
It's really just a decorative feature.
30 inches.
Okay. The other question I have is for the patio on the other side, which is out of the buffer. But your construction, where's your construction access going to be to go to do the work on that side? The front of the house?
Front of the house. They're going to have to use caution because the leaching facility's out front. It's a trench system, but we have an as-built, so we know exactly where the trenches are. They may have to use some plates at times.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, foot might be a little bit drastic not being out there, but I would tweak it a little more. You're spending the money for the, to get the water away from the house, you don't want it to be flat.
Do it once.
Do it once.
Yeah.
Do it right, do it once. There you go. Sean?
Didn't really, no alternatives analysis? Because it is just what it is, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only alternative would honestly be not to do it.
Right. I don't have any other questions then.
Doug?
I have a few questions. One, you're telling me the driveway's going to be overlaid or full-depth reconstruction?
3/4 of it's going to remain as is. It appears to be stable and hasn't settled. But from approximately this location down,
Yeah.
has to be redone.
So it's full-depth reconstruction?
Yeah, and there's a lot of unknowns.
And
I think-
I would think that if it's flush with the garage floor, then in order to get the grade that you want to drain the water, because you said earlier that the water drains into or toward the garage.
It
So
goes,
if you want it to go the other way, you're going to have to do some grading
that's right.
in order to get the grades to do it. So that means full-depth reconstruction in that area. Rip everything out, and I assume it's going to be, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are they going to haul the stuff away or as it's taken out, or are they going to stockpile it somewhere?
They're going to need an area to temporarily stockpile some materials.
Okay, you don't show that on the plan?
No, we're going to show an area up here, which is going to require additional erosion controls, and that'll be on the plan when we come back.
Okay. Then you probably should indicate what's full-depth reconstruction, what's going to be overlaid, or where it begins and stuff like that. So just.
We'll
so-
put a line on there, but it's going to be approximate.
Well, and then the other question I got, and it's got nothing to do with conservation, but it's got, I noticed that you, Summer Street a public way?
Summer Street is a public way, variable width.
Well, okay. But you have a couple of granite bollards and a proposed cobblestone apron within the public way. Has this been approved by the town?
No.
I would suggest you talk with the DPW or somebody on that to make sure they approve it. Because, the reason I do this is because I know I used to work for the town of Marblehead, which has nothing to do with North Andover. But there, they did not allow cobblestone aprons or these bollards within the public right-of-way. They only allowed either bituminous concrete or cement concrete. One of the two. That was it. So
We'll check in with them.
you probably be checking, because you don't want to be in the process of construction and somebody knock on your door and say, what are you doing?
That's right.
Okay, that's it for me.
So we need to continue. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Next one is 242-1431, request for a partial bond release.
So I've been out to 1 Pond Street. They're largely done with construction. The site is almost entirely stabilized. They were still working on the deck, so the area under the deck wasn't quite stabilized, but, and they had a few areas where the grass didn't quite take, but almost, predominantly. We already have the as-built, so we know things are in compliance, except for the deck, which was being finished. But I'd say it would be easy enough to release half at this point. I know they're looking to finish up some things and would probably like the money to put toward them.
Jen?
How much are we holding?
3,000.
3,000.
John?
No questions?
Doug? Okay, so Jen, you put the recommendation half?
And that's the standard.
That's usually,
The most we'll give anyway.
Yeah, and the site's not bad. I go by there all the time.
Standard question, I'll ask you the standard question, you know what's coming. If we had to fix this, if we had to do it, would the remaining bond be sufficient?
Yeah, there's nothing to fix. We know everything's in
something
the
went
right
wrong,
location.
I
I
know
guess if there was some stabilization, would $1,500 be enough to loam and seed some area, I'd say
I
probably.
mean, but you understand, that's the whole basis of how I
All
think.
we're talking
anyway.
about is final stabilization here, so I don't think,
The most impacted area was the driveway and the wall and stuff. and
right.
It's in real good shape.
And we have the as-built to that, so we know it's all constructed
Yeah,
where it
they
should
did a
be.
good, they did a good job on that.
Then I'm happy to move that we release 50%.
You have a motion, Nate?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1574, 71 Winter Green.
So Heidi said he may not be able to make it tonight. Oh, and she gave us photos. We didn't require an as-built on this one because he was constructing over an existing deck. So it wasn't like the as-built was gonna show anything new and exciting. I think he had to do some new support. But he planted trees that were not the size spec'd. And they haven't been in place long enough. They're supposed to be there a year, and they were planted this summer. So I didn't, if someone came and wanted to address it, otherwise, I would just say it's not ready, and we need to, we should give him the opportunity to withdraw, I guess. So if you want to continue it to next meeting so he can withdraw, but we didn't have that from him, or I don't know if he wants to address the commission with any other information, but at this point, it doesn't meet the requirements for a certificate of compliance.
Okay. Any questions, John?
Is the shed in the location indicated on the plan? Yeah.
Per the requirement. The brush pile that was out there has been cleaned up. So, I mean, everything's been done according to plan. It's just the mitigation area where the shed was has not been there the required amount of time. And the plantings aren't as large as what we had called for, but I would say if they survive the winter, the chances are they're going to be fine. And he did plant one more than he was supposed to. So he was required to plant 2, and he planted 3.
What kind of bond do we have for this one? Can't be much.
I'd say it's probably 1,000 maybe.
Looks like we should see.
It was 1,000, yep.
1,000? Oh, he's not here. So my suggestion is that we continue and maybe recommend doing a partials. To hold $1,000 for 3 maple trees?
Yeah, we could give him a partial bond release, but I think he's really just interested in closing it out. So why don't we just continue it, and we'll we'll check in with him and see what he wants to do.
Okay.
As of right now, your opinion is it's not ready?
Correct.
Okay.
So we need a motion to continue.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, next one is 242-1480, COC request for 14 Lorraine.
Request to continue.
Oh, we have a request to continue. I didn't see that.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
So our friends at the Parson Barnard haven't come up with a revised plan, so I recommend we continue that.
Okay. Did you give them we have to give them the number to that company that did the one at the school administration building.
Oh, right, yeah.
Or I'm going to call one of the other.
Get our own quote.
I hear you. Okay, request to continue 242-1620.
I'll move it.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Okay, so we have decision times.
Oh, we do need to, just one more vote before decisions. You got an email, all of you, I think, from the selectmen wanting someone to serve on the Osgood Landing Smart Growth Overlay District Committee.
I got an email from Jack, and he volunteered to be on that committee.
I did.
Nicely done, Jack. Nicely done. Here.
All right, so
Nicely
I
done.
nominate Jack.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Jack.
Kind of like selective service, huh, Jack?
There you go.
We do have our we have 2 December meetings. We have to decide if we're going to if we're going to have our annual Conservation Christmas party on the 2nd or the 16th. The straw poll so far is...
Well, you're on camera. Are we inviting everyone, or should we just do the decisions first?
Oh, decisions first.
Yeah, we can do that on adjournment.
Yeah.
Okay, next one is
So
decisions.
we're going to table that discussion.
We'll table
Okay,
it.
it's tabled. That discussion is tabled. Thank you.
So we have 242-1661, 95 Lions Way.
I thought I was watching Animal House there for a minute.
So 95 Lions Way, this is the one that got the waiver for the ephemeral pool, but they do have mitigation. Condition 31, there was an old filing for this house, and that has a certificate of compliance. Condition 36 is the mitigation, where they restore a portion of the 50-foot no disturb, and they agreed to put posts, because this is the one where the infiltration system is buried in the backyard. I put 2,500 for the bond, because I think what's being constructed out there is kind of along the lines of a second house, so not quite the bond of a new house, but there's a lot going on, and it's all in the resource area jurisdiction.
Any questions, Jack?
No questions.
Doug? Motion?
I move that we adopt the order of conditions for 242-1661 as drafted.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1666, 240 Charles Street.
This was for the Organics to Energy project, which is that new digester and infrastructure that goes along with it. I did cite in here on condition 29 the various orders of conditions that have been issued to GLSD at this point. The majority of them have COCs. The 2 that do not are the maintenance of the sewer line along the Merrimack River, which has not been done yet, and the new order of conditions we issued for the Riverside Pump Station. So they're open orders, but they're things that are not complete, so just got them all in there, though. There's erosion control, 45, silt sacks in the catch basins, 46. I put the bond at 5,000. We would never be able to finish the project were it not complete, but at least we'd be able to, clean up any legal fees. I think things go pretty smoothly out there. They hire good people. They want this to be a good project, so I have no concerns on that front. So stormwater conditions, I think this is supposed to say section 5.1, not 65.1 is their erosion control measure section. I'll just look that up and clarify. I did print out and attach the condition 59, the long-term pollution prevention plan. That'll become part of the order for maintenance. They do have some new stormwater structures out there or redesigned. And then all the usual monitoring. They do have no salt zone signs out there from a prior order. I just reiterated, I know they were missing a few, so I just said that they should be put back. And that's that.
Any questions, Jack?
No.
Al?
No questions.
Sure.
No questions.
Motion?
Move that we issue 2421666 as drafted.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And that's unanimous. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed? And that's unanimous.